if I can make a couple recommendations in terms of trying just to see if the conversion increases, right? Is before you end the first conversation, you want to hold the disclosure consent as a form of pinpointing them to a location that they're going to have solid attention.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So the very first way that I go about it is I ask, when will you be at a home computer or iPad or tablet where you can give consent to receive my documents electronically? Because I really don't want to mail these documents. It has a lot of sensitive info.
Right.
Plus it's like 100+ pages.
Right.
I'd rather just send them over to you electronically when you're going to be at home to consent.
Right.
And so just by asking them that, they'll tell me when they'll be at home.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
And so if they say I should be at home to give consent about 5:30, and so then I'll ask, okay, well, how about the missus? When will she be home because she has to give a consent too?
Mm-hmm.
We'll both be home at about 5:30. Okay, got it. And so even if I talk to them at 11, I'm not pitching them until they're at home.
5:30.
Preferably, right?
Right.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take about 30 minutes and just go over some of the topics that, may still kind of somewhat be a challenge.
Right.
I know you watch a channel, you implement the script, and from what I'm hearing, you're having a lot of success with it.
I am having success with it.
Yeah, so now it's really talking about things that go beyond the script.
Exactly.
Some challenges that you may be coming about, and these one-on-ones that are going to be happening, a few of them with your team, a few of them with James' teams. They're going to be posted on the channel, so you'll be able to see and kind of sit in like a fly on the wall, and kind of just absorb some of the information that's coming out.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. So if you have some topics, let's cover the topic.
Yeah, one topic I want to cover with you, Daniel, is presenting the solution to the client. I mean, you always talk about in testimonies, how you're here to provide a solution. It's not about rate, it's not about payment, it's about finding that solution. And what I'm having trouble with, like, I don't feel like I feel like I could be with the top guys if I was more efficient at presenting the solution to the client. I think sometimes I don't feel comfortable, like, when I present the solution, I don't feel comfortable, like, I had doubts of, like, if they
like it,
or they comprehended it. Did I present it in the right way? Did I structure the structure of it? Did I structure it the correct way? Is one of my main things. And I feel like I could lock a lot more loans if I presented it structurally correct. You know what I'm saying? Where they can comprehend it, they understand it. But not only that I can get them to come with a lot of yeses. They agree to it, understand it, and then basically lock it in. You know what I mean? So my biggest hurdle right now is I don't have a problem with the intro. Your intro is awesome, so I use that. I have a high credit you pull, where a lot of my loans I pull credit. I have absolutely no problem pulling credit. I mean, I'm around 70% pulling credit.
Nice.
Once again, once I pull the credit and I go over and I recap what they want, but then when I call them back, I personally don't feel comfortable, because I feel like some get out the door on me that shouldn't have. You know what I mean? And I think that's due to the lack or not the confidence in how I structured, the solution to them. As far as should I, when we talk about it, after you recap it, you tell them, well, I know you wanted this, this, and this, you know what I mean? And then you hit on those points with them. Sometimes I feel like maybe I rush it, or I definitely think I rush through it a lot, you know what I'm saying? I don't think I'm slow enough, you know what I mean? But I just don't feel like I'm structuring it the correct way, as far as showing the borrower
the sequential order of how you deliver the information.
Exactly. And then how they can then perceive the benefit and say, yeah, this is how I want it, this is who I want it, and now I'm ready to move forward. So I feel like I'm locking loans, but I could be, I'm right there next to Luke and Max and KG, you know what I mean? And I listen to them and I look on the board, they've got 20 locks or something. And I'm feeling like, I should be at 20 locks, you know what I mean? I should be there, and I feel like I'm letting some get away from me, from keeping me from getting those better numbers and everything like that.
Okay, so we're gonna solve that today.
Okay.
You're gonna know exactly how to deliver it. You can have this video to turn back on and really kind of rewatch it and internalize the process, right? So I guess to find the root of the problem, let's take a step back and figure out how the first call ends and then how the second call starts.
Gotcha.
So let's just say you pull my credit. What do you tell me from that point?
Well, once I pull the credit, the first thing I always let them know is that, hey Daniel, I'm going to email over a copy of the credit report over to you so you can have that for your records. And then what I do next is then I go through each account. You know what I mean? I go through each account. Even if it has nothing to do with the loan itself, I always go from top to bottom, the loan, of course, being the biggest balance, all the way down. If it's $55, I'll cover every single account. I go over the lates or whatever,
Sure.
everything there. So I review that. And then once I review the credit, then I go straight to the loan application, the 1003. And then I go straight,
So you're pulling credit and then the 1003.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So after the credit and the 1003 is complete and you're wrapping up the first call, how does that sound?
Well, basically what I try and do is, when I'm wrapping up the call, I kind of recap basically what they said they called in for.
Good.
A lower rate, lower payment. You know what I mean? So I'll go over that and cash out whatever the parameters are. I'll go ahead and recap that for them, and then I'll set a time. Like most people say in office, give me about an hour, give me about 30 minutes to an hour. I'll give you a call back, and I make sure I use the word that you say, and I'll have a solution for you. So I always make sure I say that, and then basically, I'll go get off the phone with them because I do the complete 1003 top to bottom all the way through everything.
Sure.
And then once I get them off the phone, then I'll go price it, you know what I mean? And price it out and see what's best and, how to applicate, like if, of course there's a little bit of cost on all these loans, so I'll applicate whatever I can get as far as an exception into it, and then.
So let's say you got everything structured, priced, ready to go, hour passed by, you're calling me for the pitch, right? How does it start? What does it sound like?
Well, what I did basically, hey Daniel, how you doing? Just giving you a call back. I want to go over this pricing, what I was able to find for you as far as a solution, and then from there, then I'll present the loan amount. So what we're trying to do is a 30-year fix. You said you wanted a lower rate. You know what I mean? So this is going to be the loan amount, and then the rate, and then the payment. You know what I mean? But what I find myself doing now, I kind of switched it up a little bit where I don't even talk. I'm trying not to talk about the rate, unless they ask for it. You know what I mean? So then like today, I presented one where I presented the payment first, where your payment was this, and now your payment is this. You know what I mean? You're going to save so many dollars per month and everything like that.
Sure.
And then it's just, from there, it's kind of wishy-washy.
Kind of right?
Yeah, that's right.
So I got a good idea of what you're going through.
Right.
A lot of my team, the newer people come on who have not as many locks as they want, present in the same way.
Right.
And it's not your fault because you think that'd be just the best way to deliver the information. And so a few things that I picked up is, number one is I personally would refrain from sending them a copy of the credit report. Okay. Right? Unless they ask. Okay. Because what happens is if we send them a copy of the credit report, they get too lost in the information. Okay. They don't understand how to read it. Okay. And then if they see like a balance or a derogatory report or some sort of comment, they may be inclined to say, well, let me fix this credit, Chris, before I do anything. I'll give you a call in a month or two. Right. Because they're going to feel like they're not ready. Exactly. And also if they feel that our report, because sometimes it doesn't reflect current balance, right? Right. So there might be a balance from like July, and then but they see $6,000. They're like, hey, wait, we just sent $1,000. We don't owe them $6,000. Now we're kind of negative anchoring. The emotion towards our project, right? Because they feel like we don't have the right information. Does that make sense? That does make sense. So there's a reason for that. And then second is when saying you're putting the information together and you're going to give them a call back in an hour, that's a sensitive part. because we have to make sure that the people who are making the decision are present, but they're in a position to where they can make the decision.
Right.
Okay. So if I talk to Jim, let's say at 11 a.m., and I spend an hour on the phone with him, and then I say I'm gonna give you a call back in an hour, Jim could very well still be at work.
That's very true.
Right?
Yeah.
And when we're at work, imagine being at your desk, you have alerts, you have emails, appointments, calls, right? A lot of distractions.
Gotcha.
Not only that, but the missus is not with you, right? Which is then going to open up the objection of saying, hey Chris, everything sounds great, I just need to talk to the wife now. Right? How often do you get that?
Every now and then, you know, every now and then. So that definitely happens. And then one thing I want to go back to is about the credit report. Is I'm taking in what you just said, but I use that as kind of a when I said that's part of, like, you know, my sale. Like, I'm showing you a service. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know, like, so I, you know, once I run the credit, and then because the first thing I do, I tell them I'm gonna send you a series of emails. And the first email thing I'm going to send you is your property profile. So, you know, when I open up the call, what I'm doing now is I'm like, Daniel, let me go ahead and confirm some information that I had. Is your number such and such and such and such? Is this your email such and such and such? And then, of course, right now, some of the CSRs are not putting in the address anymore. So then I'll say, hey, I need the street. Can you please give me the street address?
Sure.
So once I start doing that, then I'll pull up the property profile. And then I'll say, okay, you know, after we review the history and everything going on in the profile and everything like that, I go over everything, when it was built, when they bought it, the history of their loan. I go into all that. And then I'll say, okay, this is the first email I'm going to send you your property profile. And then once I send the property profile, then I say the next step is we're going to go ahead and take a peek at the credit. And I always tell them to take a peek at the credit. Do I get some pushback? Out of 10 calls that I'll get, maybe 2 will push back. You know what I mean? So I'll run 8 credit inquiries. And then, like I said before, as part of my sale, or as my intro sale, I guess you might want to say, I'll say, and the next email that you're going to receive is a copy of the credit report. So I kind of implement it as a sales technique or strategy to keep them involved. And then, like I said before, even though I email it over to them, they really don't have a chance to open it right there, because I'm already I'm reviewing the credit with them. And like I said, I go over it line by line, each account and everything like that. And then
so when you're going over it line by line, it's important that you ask what payment that they're sending on the credit card. Right. So like, hey, you got a Chase card, how much do you send? And then it's important to make note how much they send. Right. Because you'll know if they're tight on money. Right. If they're sending the minimum payment. Right. Or they're sending above and beyond, and if they have any cash flow, because then that's going to give you leverage later on. Right. I think personally the reason why I wouldn't send a credit report is because I'm giving them ammunition to then say, okay, well, I'm gonna go see what this other lender has, and I already have my credit report. Gotcha. Does that make sense? That does. So now they're gonna shop and wondering, like, okay, well, I gotta, because they're not gonna understand the mid FICO versus the high. Say, hey, I got a 790 FICO, and Chris over at New American is quoting me this, but really their mid FICO's 60 points lower. Right. And it's like, no, I can get you this, but the other LOs pricing it based on the high FICO. Right. And so, I don't know, I'm a creature of habit, and one thing that I do notice is that when I get bit, I'll always kind of retweak my approach so that I can avoid getting bit like that again. Right. And so over years of kind of going through that process and so many pitches that I've ever done, it just kind of molded my way to where I'm covering all my outs. Gotcha. Right. So that's why I would give that input. But you know, when merging over to the second call, because the problem is that, and the reason why there's an issue of feeling like it's going too fast or feeling like they're not absorbing it, is because the perception that they have, and then also the perception that we have in regards to what information we're talking about. Right. So I like how you recap what they do at the end of the first conversation. Right. You should definitely do that at the beginning of your pitch call. Gotcha. Right? And then the sequential order of how you deliver information is very, very important. So it starts right from the very beginning. And so there are certain words that become triggers to an emotion, right? So certain words will trigger an emotion of defense or fear, like price or refinance even, right? Like certain words like credit pull or credit report, things like that will put them on the defense.
Right.
And so if I can make a couple recommendations in terms of trying just to see if the conversion increases, right? Is before you end the first conversation, you want to hold the disclosure consent as a form of pinpointing them to a location that they're going to have solid attention.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So the very first way that I go about it is I ask, when will you be at a home computer or iPad or tablet where you can give consent to receive my documents electronically? Because I really don't want to mail these documents. It has a lot of sensitive info. Plus it's like 100+ pages. I'd rather just send them over to you electronically. When are you going to be at home to consent? And so just by asking them that, they'll tell me when they'll be at home.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
And so if they say I should be at home to give consent about 5:30, and so then I'll ask, okay, well, how about the missus? When will she be home because she has to give a consent too? We'll both be home at about 5:30. Okay, got it. And so even if I talk to them at 11, I'm not pitching them until they're at home.
5:30.
Preferably, right?
Right.
Now, if in the event, because one-offs you'll get where like, I'm not going to be home until 9 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, no worries. When will you be on at least a break to where you can give consent through your cell phone?
Gotcha.
Right? And do you know where the missus will be at that time so she can give consent as well? Right? So it's like, I'll be on break at 4 o'clock, for example. Okay, cool. And then your missus, will she be available at 4 o'clock to give consent as well?
Right.
Because they don't know that the consent is just an email.
Right.
Say, yeah, she'll be available too. Okay, cool. So what I'll do is I'll conference call her in if necessary. I'm not telling them that, but I know I can conference call them in.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
And I know they're on break, and I know that somewhat I have some opening versus me calling them when they're not on break. Because you want to be able to position yourself so that they're absorbing the information.
Gotcha.
Right? And then so I don't recap what they want in the first call because I intentionally do it at the next call.
Gotcha.
And the reason for that is because, And the reason for that is because the time gap from my initial conversation to the pitch call could be a couple hours.
Right.
And I need to put them back in that mindset of why they need me. Right? So a lot of things can happen in between, and I need to put them in a position where they're in a point of need. They're in a point of needing a fix.
Gotcha.
Not only that, but when I incorporate the other party who wasn't there, I need them to feel that, oh, he knows us.
Right.
That's immediate rapport.
Right.
So I usually say that to the second call, but when I end the first call, I say, okay, I'm gonna go and put the information together. Once your disclosures are ready, you'll get an email notification letting you know it's available to review. Now, if I run into any hiccups or if I have any questions, I'll give you a call first before I send them.
Gotcha.
And that becomes the pitch call.
Gotcha.
Right? Because I already know that they're going to be available at 4 o'clock or 5:30 or whatever, right? And so when I give them a call on the second call, it's very important to start it this way. And it's saying, hey Chris, I was actually putting the information together for both you and Susie. And I'm about to send the information out right now, but I found something and I thought I'd run it by you first before I send it out. Do you got a minute? Of course they have a minute because we know they're available, right? Say, yeah, okay, cool. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring Susie in on the line because I want her feedback as well.
Right.
And so now I'm gonna conference call her in, or if they're available at home, I'm gonna say, throw me on speakerphone, yeah.
Right.
And say, okay, hey Susie, I had a chance to speak with Chris earlier today, and basically what I'm doing is I'm putting disclosure together to show you how to remove or to create some cash flow, because Chris shared with me you guys have about 36 grand in credit card debt, and together combined you guys are sending about $800. I know that's a minimum payment, but still he mentioned that leaves you with less than $100 left in the bank, checking savings, right?
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure I got the solution out to you before your credit diminished any further. And so I was just sharing with Chris, I found a few things that I wanted to get your feedback on. I was going through the credit report, and because of these credit card debts, like the Chase, the Barclays, and you're immediately announcing things that they're familiar with, right? I noticed that it weighed on your credit score. As a matter of fact, the common comments from the credit bureaus as to why they're determining your credit score is mainly derived from the credit card balances.
Right.
And so I had a thought. You had mentioned in our first conversation that you guys want to keep this home, or at least you're going to be here for 5 to 10 more years. And depending if you guys want to keep this house, I can show you how to pay it off sooner, but at least in the interim, show you how to create enough savings where you can replenish your bank, have more than $100, and boost your FICO score somewhere north of 760.
Gotcha.
That's going to ensure that you get the best interest rate, the best payment on anything you ever plan to finance. This goes to the mortgage, cars, credit cards, anything that you ever finance. You point and you got it, right? So here's my idea, and I want your feedback. So I'm thinking about your current mortgage payment, which is $1,000, and then your credit card payments, which are $800, combines $1,800. You see, Chris and Susie, I think what we can do is we can bring your total payment from the $1,800 down to $1,200, and then help you improve your FICO score, create $600 in month-to-month savings, replenish the bank account that only has $100, and give you, and I would add up like the payment deferral and escrow refund, and immediately give you about $4,000 just to put in the bank. So that can actually protect you in this particular case for just in time for the holidays. But if in the event you want to use it to maybe boost your retirement, that's completely at your discretion. Now, the upside here is that when your FICO is improved after about 9 to 12 months, and you have no debt and you have $600 in cash flow, I can show you how to shorten your term by at least 5 to 10 years. Right? Now, we all know that a shorter term is going to have the lower interest rate. A higher FICO score is always going to get you the lowest interest rate. But here's the math, is that by reducing it, 8 years, I take 8 times, 12 times their PI, right? Their principal and interest payment. It looks like if we went this route, I could save you north of $250,000 in payments. Besides the higher FICO, besides 12 months of living in the bank, besides the lowest payment, besides $600 in breathing room, cash flow. This is something different you guys aren't experiencing right now. But before I sent it out that way, Chris and Susie, I just wanted your feedback. Does that sound like something you guys want to do?
I get it, yeah.
You see?
Yeah, I see.
So everything that I said applied to them. It had nothing to do with lingo. 30-year term, 30-year fix, interest rate, none of that. Because I'm getting them to buy into the emotion first, right? So the sequential order is important. Where right now you're talking about the price, right? And then the benefit, and then the logistics. All you're doing is swapping it. So you're talking about the benefit or the results, the logistics, how to get it, and then the price. So they understand what you're doing truly with no bias filter, right? They're not looking at, because what happens is if I go opposite and I say, hey, Chris and Susie, I have a 30-year fix, 4.5%. This is the monthly payment, but it saves you this. It could do this. It could do that. They've muted me if they didn't like what I started off with. 4.5. Oh, I saw rates at 3.25.
Exactly.
So they're not even listening to the rest, right? And then okay, so if that sounds good, then this is how, and then we talk about logistics. So the best way to go about it is open it up and say, hey, I have an idea, because that gives you full control of the conversation, and you're not feeling that anxiety of wanting to rush the information out. Because the anxiety comes from of saying, okay, I put together some pricing, and I wanted to show you what we could do, and now it's like you're on stage, right? And the best dancer is going to get, the pass, right? So you're super aware of everything that's going on from the way they sound, their tonality, the way you sound, the information you're putting out, and it's just overload. Right? But if you could present it in that way, you'll have much more compliance, and they'll be ready to go, regardless of what the rate of the price is. Right? Because they've already emotionally bought in, and so the saying goes, people buy with emotion and then justify it with logic. Get it? So when they buy in first with emotion, and then we go over the price and the cost, and they say, oh, but D, you 4.5, I'm seeing rates at 3.25. Oh no, like I said, Chris, after 9 to 12 payments, your FICO score is going to be north of 760. You're going to have X amount of dollars in the bank. You're going to be completely debt free. This is just a stepping stone. Because what's going to happen after that is I'm going to give you a call back as a courtesy service, because you have history with us. Just keep your payments on time. Don't miss a payment. We'll come in and we'll do a complimentary service where we take you from the 29 years you'll have left into a 20-year fixed term. Now I'm reducing the term by 9 years, and I'm going to get you a much lower interest rate. Because that alleviates the anxiety from their side of thinking they're going to have 4.5% their entire life. Right? So it's a little bit easier for them to accept that if I want A, B, and C, I need to accept this. Right? And since Chris already has a plan, or D already has a plan, I know that I'm not going to have the 4.5, but I really want the results. I really want the savings.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I get it.
So all the lingo, the terminology, and like the rate, the price, the fees doesn't happen until the very end.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So benefit first, logistics second, pricing or all that other stuff last.
Correct.
And I definitely try and even when I start, and I first take notes to, when I'm trying to first find out exactly what they want to do, and I always use your open-ended questions. Hey, are we looking to maximize our savings or pay off the house sooner? You know what I mean? I also bring in, other than your mortgage, what other debt do you have starting off with your credit card? So these are the questions that you've given me that I use. You know what I mean? But one thing that I try and do, I still do it, but I try and do it maybe last, or if I could, I would like to avoid it. I don't even want to know what the rate is, really. You know what I mean? I try and stay away from rate, and and ask, because I remember that's a pet peeve of yours. Where people are, going, well, what's your rate? And I definitely don't do that. You know what I mean? I definitely stay away from talking about rate, or I don't even want to know what their rate is. Basically, if I don't have to know it, you know what I mean? Sometimes when they start their conversation, say, hey, tell me about your loan, you know what I mean? Then they'll say, oh, I have, then they'll talk about the rate, but I don't, I try and make sure out of my mouth, I'm not saying, what's your rate? Hey, Daniel, what's your rate? What do you have right now? So I try and stay away from that. I do ask about the payment, the balance, and the term. Those are the three things that I take away from it.
Yeah, because the immediate conversation, besides the 1003, and besides, getting rapport, is you're looking for specific pain points, right? And so why the script is effective is because it gives you full control of the conversation, while at the same time immediately going towards the pain points while still paying mind to variables that can kill the deal. Right. So one of the reasons why I move my declaration questions at the very beginning of the conversation is because if this person co-signed for a house that went into a short sale, there's no need to be talking about conventional loan, right? I'm already switching up and figuring out, okay, so FHA is going to be the topic of the conversation,
right?
Because then that will be a complete time burner.
Gotcha.
So, but also at the same time, you're finding out solar panels exist, if other liens are on the home, judgments, right? Lawsuits, what have you, and you're getting a good idea of their FICO score, but you're immediately finding pain points, and the reason why open-ended questions like, you're besides the mortgage, what other debts do you have? Let's start with credit cards. Is because it becomes a funnel question or a bridge question to sensitive topics that'd be very hard to ask them, such as like, how much do you average in checking and savings? It's a very personal
that is a very personal
question, right? And then they get on defensive. But if you start with, how much in debt? Let's start with credit cards. Credit cards, I got about 20 grand. How much do you send? Oh, I send about $200. Is that the minimum or above? Oh, it's about the minimum. Okay, where else does your cash flow go to? What other debts? Oh, I got student loans, kids, hobbies, daycare, right? Say, oh, that's a lot, right? But you're noting all this down, because you're going to recap it at the beginning of the pitch call.
Gotcha.
And say, okay, so at the end of everything, Chris, we have what's called a net. So net is basically your net income, net all of your expenses, the daycare, the electricity, the groceries. How much is your net income? And they're always going to give you a high figure. They say my net income is probably about $1,000. Got it. So how much of that $1,000 are you actually putting in the bank for a rainy day? And then of course they'll say another high figure. Oh, I put at least $800. Okay, cool. So how much do you average in checking and savings? See, now I'm allowed to ask that question. See, and that's one of the most sensitive questions that gives you most leverage, because when they say, oh, I only have $500 when everything is said and done. But no, they just said they added $800 every month. Does that make sense? So you're able to kind of filter and peel back the layers of the onion to find out where the pain is.
Gotcha.
And say, okay, so because you only have about $500 in the bank, this is the reason why the credit card balances are high, I would imagine. They say, yeah. Say, okay, well, here's the thing is that, if you're paying the minimum on $20,000 in credit card debt, you can only imagine how long it's going to take you to pay off. Not to mention the fact that interest is compounding, it's not even tax deductible. So I can only imagine what this has done on your credit score. When was the last time you looked at your credit? Oh, I looked at it about 2 weeks ago. Okay, what was the reason? Oh, I applied for a mortgage. Now I've got signs, right? So what happened? How come you didn't get it done then?
Right.
Oh, I got declined. Right. Now I'm saving myself time.
Right.
Or they say, oh, I didn't. I'm in the process. We're thinking about it. Now it gives me more leverage. Right. It's like, okay, well, what's the reason? What's your hesitation? Oh, I didn't like the price. Now I know that the price is something that they're going to be a stickler for.
Exactly.
Perhaps me for the second call.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
It's a way to kind of expose their belief system and also their flaws at the same time.
Gotcha.
But the pain points is really the nuts and bolts of the conversation.
Right.
It's not necessarily about us and how we present it and how we sound. We got to shift the focus away from being kind of buttoned up and proper, even though we'll naturally do that.
Right.
But when we try too hard to be buttoned up and proper, we'll kind of convey that we're selling. Right. And the idea is to talk to them as if they were your best friend referred them.
Right.
And so you hit them with that tonality.
Right.
Like, hey, yeah, let's check this out.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's just completely different tone.
Right.
And you're a little bit more comfortable. And so when that used to hit me, and I used to be kind of nervous whenever I would do my pitches, I always made believe that my auntie referred them. Right?
Gotcha.
Like, oh yeah, this is Jim.
Right.
He knows my auntie.
Right.
It just made me a little bit more comfortable.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
Even though it wasn't true, it just kind of put me in that mindset. So whatever trick you decide to use, those are some helpful tips.
No, I get it. I totally get it and everything like that for sure. And one of the things you did mention is, tonality. And I feel like, I rush the pitch. I need to slow it way down. You know what I mean? Just slow down the way I approach them and everything like that. But what I'm gonna do is what you just mentioned. So at the beginning of the call, well, hey Daniel, let's kind of recap what we were talking about in the first call and talk about, well, I know that you wanted this, and this, and then benefit, right? We talk about the benefit of doing the refinance. These are the logistics of doing the refinance, and then of course the pricing of the refinance and everything like that.
So it pauses in between.
It pauses in between, right.
So it always starts off with an idea, not, hey, this is what I priced for you, because again, trigger words.
Right.
Oh, price. Okay, now I'm on guard.
Right.
Because your price is never going to be good enough. Right. So when they hear price, they're like, okay, they're thinking they have to buy it. Right. So just switch up the verbiage and say, hey, I was actually going to send out your disclosures, and I found a few things I want to run it by you first before I send it out.
Right.
That's how the pitch starts.
Gotcha.
Got it?
Gotcha.
Now there's no guard up.
Right.
And say, hey, you mentioned that it was important for you to, and this is where you recap.
Right.
Now I have an idea, and I want to get your feedback. If we were to, and this is where the presentation comes in.
Gotcha.
Right? If we were to bring your payment from here to here, I think that not only will you create savings, but you'll improve your FICO, replenish your bank, position you for long-term ownership to achieve the goals that you outlined in the first conversation.
Right.
And so it's very important to really get a good understanding of what pain they have in the first call, because those are the words you're going to use in the second call to close them.
Gotcha.
And create urgency.
I got you.
Make sense?
100%.
Pretty deep, huh?
Yeah, it is, man. And I'm just sitting here thinking, man, there's some people who are naturally gifted at this, and I guess you're just one of those guys.
There's years of practice.
Years of practice, but there had to be somebody that you had to learn it off of. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there had to be somebody who, when you first got into the business, kind of gave you those little tools, little ins and outs to kind of help you come to this point where you are right now, super successful, a manager, the best team in the company and everything like that. And that's not by luck, that's by experience and knowing what you're doing and everything like that. So
I think a lot of it has to do with the way it came up. So a lot of street smarts is included.
Right.
I had to sell my way through life and living with different family members.
Right.
And growing up in the streets, you had to read human emotion.
Right.
You had to read certain things, and I talked myself out of going to jail plenty of times. So I was good at sales all the time.
I get it. I totally get that. I totally get that for sure. And it's just, man, and I'm 55, you know what I mean? I've been doing this for 10 years, and I'm being honest with you, I have not been super successful at it. I'm good, but I'm not the best, and I know I can be better, and I know I have the verbiage and the ability, the mental ability to be better, but somewhere I'm tripping over myself, you know what I mean? And I want to be the type of guy that like I said, where I'm, like today when Ray sent out the list, you know what I mean, of who's doing well. I see all your guys up there at the very top, you know what I mean? And I want Chris Cook to be up there at the very top, you know what I mean? I really do. And you never really want to put a number on it, man, but I would like to break 200 grand, you know what I'm saying? And really be able to have a little bit of, not a little, financial freedom, you know what I'm saying? Options and stuff like that at the end of the day. And like I said, I think it's just, sometimes, like, once again, taking the credit and, the loan application, and I'm going to listen to you about sending the credit reports. I'm not going to do that anymore unless they request it, of course. But, and then I'm also going to implement, that's a key, man, is like, the e-consent. You know what I mean? Using the e-consent as I don't want to use the word weapon, but almost like a weapon to figure out, like, hey, when are the positioning of the wife and the husband and the wife are going to be there, and using that as a tool to have them get on board to listen to what I have to say and everything like that.
Because if you asked it in a way where, hey, so when are you and your wife going to be together?
Right.
They're immediately thinking, well, why?
Right.
Right. You're going to pitch me. And so the e-consent softens it.
Right.
And now I'm pinpointing where they're going to be at what time.
Right.
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 So it's just a more of a covert way of getting the same exact answer that we need.
Right.
Which is, the bridge questions is a more covert way to get to the real question: how much do you have in the bank?
Right.
Right. Because I need to know if they're hurting.
Right.
And if they're not hurting, then I need to switch up the dialogue of the conversation and talk about owning the house.
Right.
Right. It just gives me more ammunition.
Gotcha.
So what I would recommend, Chris, is just continue following the content, absorb as much as you can. And when this video is posted up, really listen to it, practice it to where it's second nature, and I promise you, your closing conversions will go north of 70%, if not more.
I hope so, man.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, man, I hope that sometimes I know that you'll be busy. I see you have your phones in and you're focused
in the zone.
Yeah, you're focused on the thing, and I come up and tap you, hey, you know what I mean? And I just want to make sure that you don't get too offended by that, man, because
all the time.
Success breeds success. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, why not learn? And am I older than you? Sure I am. Right. That doesn't mean I can't learn. You know what I mean? And I'm not shy about learning, and not shy about saying, hey, yeah, I'm young. You're younger than me, but I can learn something from you. You know,
that's what's going to set you apart from everyone else.
Exactly. So as long as it's okay, man, because sometimes I feel, like, am I bothering you? You know what I mean, or anything like that.
One of the things I tell my team members is I'm Asian, so it looks like I'm mad, but I'm not. Right. I just have one of those faces.
You do, man.
Right? Yes, exactly. A lot, and I have to tell them because otherwise they won't come up to me.
Exactly, man. Sometimes you're looking and you got that that look and everything like that. And damn, is that bothering or anything like that? But I always got to come up to you, man.
My wife's friends always tell me, like, is he mad?
Exactly.
And my wife's like, that's just the way he looks.
Exactly. So, I mean, for example, I would have never got those little open-ended questions that you sent over to me via email unless I came up and approached you and said, hey, Daniel, can you... Because I saw it on the script and I'm trying to think to myself, what are the questions? What is Daniel, what does he say? You know what I mean? And so,
anytime, man.
Yeah, man, I just want to make sure I can always come up, man, and, I'm just listening to different words, like, I have an idea, you know what I mean? So just these little trigger words that you have that, you know what I mean, are really catchy and basically they're the difference, you know what I mean, from saying pricing, or I have this, but I have an idea. Let me run it by you. Let me see what you think about it. That
money,
and it makes them, like you said, when you hear somebody says, "I have an idea," you're listening, but you're not on defense listening. You know what I mean? You're on offense. You're really listening. You're wanting to, this guy has an idea.
I want to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that,
because you can't sell without attention.
Exactly. And then on top of that, what you also bring to the point is, benefit, logistics, pricing. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely into that as well. Everything like that. So
it works, man.